Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give everybody 1 second to join, and then we will get started with the presentation. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me today for our presentation on solutions to enable digital transformation. My name is Emma Roloff, and I need to actually select the right button there to move my slides forward. Sorry about that. And I have been with Naviant for just over 5 years, and my focus is helping our clients identify the right solutions for their digital transformation. Before we jump in, just a couple of quick interaction options. So I do have audio muted today because we're recording the presentation, but please feel free to ask any questions or make any comments that you have within the chat box, and I will keep an eye on that as we go through the presentation. So to get us started, just a little bit on kind of this idea of why digital transformation is important. It's no secret to anybody that technology is advancing at an exponential rate. And back in 1965, Gordon Moore, one of Intel's founders, predicted that computing was dramatically going to increase, and the power is going to increase, and the relative cost is going to decrease over time. And this insight has really held true over the last 50 years, and now it's kind of known as Moore's Law. And the reason that I bring this up is that we're living in a global pandemic right now, and change is kind of a constant for us. But this idea of exponential growth in computing and the power that it's taken us to new heights in all of these industries and our personal lives. But even with that quick pace of change that we're experiencing today, based on Moore's Law, that change is happening slower now than it's ever going to in the future. And that means that now is really the time to be setting a foundation for your digital transformation if you haven't been taking those steps, or advancing your transformation efforts moving forward. So to get us started, I've got a little story to tell today. These are my daughters, and I promise I'm not just one of those moms that's bringing them up for the sake of bringing them up. I do have a point for this story. My little girls are the perfect example of how your children are their own independent people right from the very beginning. My oldest daughter, Grace, on the left here, decked out in her safety gear, lives and breathes the idea of easy does it. She takes her time, she's very methodical, and when she was learning to walk, everything was step by step. And as you can see, she's doing the same thing as she learns to ride her bike now with all of her safety equipment. On the other side, my daughter Alice is just kind of gotten to the point where she's learned to walk, but she took a very different approach. She has one speed, and that speed is go. And she never gave herself the chance to walk before she started trying to run. And while they both ultimately got to the point where they were walking, and I would say pretty sufficient at that, now chasing Alice, I would say she's pretty good at it. But Alice's journey, because she never slowed down and took the steps to kind of build a foundation of walking before she started running, resulted in a lot more bumps and bruises along the way. And if I'm going to be honest, there was a bloody nose while we were all home during quarantine and she was learning to walk. The same can be said about your transformation journey. I think folks sometimes feel like they need to do everything all at once rather than taking small bites along the way. And when you're ultimately going to get to that point of digital transformation, but you're probably going to have more of those bumps and bruises along the way if you don't take the time to prioritize your efforts. So that can be said for digital transformation. And again, these stages of automation are going to be kind of our guideposts as we move through the presentation today. Many of you have joined me for the reviews of the stages of automation, and we'll send out the series if you haven't had a chance to take a peek at that in the past. I'm not going to spend a lot of time diving into kind of what to look for in each one of these solutions, but rather today we're going to talk through each stage and the solution recommendations that Naviant has for helping enable each stage of automation. So before we dive into that, I do want to just talk a little bit about the importance of process as it relates to your digital transformation journey. At the core of any transformation, your requirements and your process should be what's driving those efforts. And this is why Naviant's approach for transformation, regardless of the product or the technology we're using, starts with process first. Then we look at how people engage with those processes and ultimately bring in the right technology to enable your team to be more efficient and do more with less. It can be really easy to jump right to technology. It's shiny and it's new and it's exciting, but that isn't the right approach for strategic change. So again, at the core of your transformation should be your process and your requirements. And all of these products that I have listed up on the screen are exciting and have merits in their own right. But where the true exciting transformation happens is in the interconnected way that these things work together. And you need to have an understanding of the process and these tools to be able to bring in and deploy the right technology at the right time. You cannot effectively automate your processes without understanding how they're truly working and where maybe you need to make modifications or redesign before implementing technology. So with that, I'm going to jump off of my process soapbox now, and I will start diving into, again, these solutions for transformation and why Naviant makes the recommendations that we do to our clients. So today we're going to talk about Highland Software, Abby, and Cryon, and how we use these tools to help solve your process challenges. So to start off, again, we're going to kind of use these stages of automation as our guideposts as we go through. And first up, we're going to talk about Highland Software's content services capabilities and why we recommend them as a foundational solution to our customers. If you don't already have a sound enterprise platform for managing information and content within your organization, you have to start there. OnBase is a solution that gives us the ability to build a foundation of information access and security and compliance across the organization, and it really breaks down information barriers or silos in your organization. So OnBase, I like to think of this as kind of, in this example, the puzzle piece that puts everything together, or sometimes folks will call it the glue that allows you to bring your information across all of these different barriers within the organization. So OnBase can integrate and link into these other structured data applications that you have managing processes today, like SAP, or if you're in the healthcare world, Epic or Cerner, in insurance, Guidewire or TriZetto. These different applications link into OnBase, and OnBase allows you to share that information across the business without having your IT team have to manage a whole host of additional other applications. So when we take a look at the components that provide that foundational access to information, if you're still relying on paper or shared network drives within your organization, this is going to be your first step. Any platform that supports core document management capabilities should really give you the ability to capture information early within your process. Manage your content and documents like you would if they were physically in front of you. So adding annotations or sticky notes, being able to work collaboratively and manage documents versions and history, search your information almost like you would from Google, and ultimately manage your records with retention and compliance roles. That's really what we're looking for within a foundational platform, and OnBase hits every single one of those items. When we look at why we specifically call out OnBase as this foundational solution, number one on the list to me is scalability. At the core of transformation, we are looking as businesses to continue to stay alive and grow. And it may sound harsh that people that don't make this transition are not going to be around in 5 years, but that is the reality. So when you are looking at embarking on a digital transformation journey, you need to make sure that you're choosing a solution that's going to grow alongside you as you continue this journey. So that means a scalable licensing model, scalable data storage. All of those things come into play when we take a look at this platform. And again, OnBase checks off those boxes. You certainly do not want to be the next person on a list of those companies that have fallen victim to security breaches. And OnBase is going to allow you kind of that high level of security to protect the information that's in the system. But also permissions and security are really important when you're looking at an enterprise application, just even making sure that the right folks have access within your own organization. So making sure that someone maybe in the accounting department doesn't know that all of your human resources documents are living and breathing within this system as well. Or an insurance example, maybe you've got confidential claims that only certain people get access to. The system has granular security and permissions that'll allow us to manage that from a true enterprise perspective. And then kind of hand in hand with this security idea is a cloud-enabled solution. So OnBase has worked very hard over the years to make sure that that level of security is upkept within their cloud solutions. And they've really adapted their model to provide cloud-ready solutions to their customers. And truthfully, a number of different options and flexibility of how we do that. But the biggest thing that I think is a win when you work with Naviant and Highland for a cloud-hosted solution is you have Highland Software's global cloud services team helping to manage with things like upgrades and support of your solution, as well as Naviant's full team kind of scattered across the country to support your implementation as well. One of the major benefits that I mentioned about OnBase at the beginning was this idea of it being an enterprise platform that scales. Beyond just scaling from, size of your company or number of users, one of the things that I think is really critical about OnBase is that it allows you to scale your capabilities from those foundational solutions up to managing productivity as well. And so we're going to take a peek again at kind of some of the tools that really help extend beyond core document management and really get into productivity management. So some of these things are going to be workflow, case management, reporting, and customer communication management that really give your team the ability to do more with less. So just taking a quick peek at some of those tools again, first up is workflow. And almost every single one of Naviant's customers is leveraging workflow today. It's really a natural extension of those document management capabilities that we talked about, because workflow at its core is going to allow you to route information and documents around the organization so that you can work collaboratively with other people. So what you want to think about when we're looking at what would be automated using workflow, it's going to be a document or a collection of data maybe that's on an electronic form. And that document needs to make multiple stops and other people need to have decisions or take action on those documents. These processes are going to be pretty linear and they're going to be able to use rules and logic to route that information around the organization. So easy, approachable, kind of universal examples of workflow would be accounts payable invoice processing, contract management, again, anything that's very linear and has stops along the way. Up next is case management, and this gives us the ability to really elevate that automation and productivity management beyond those linear processes, focusing in on complex dynamic process management. So case management does a really great job of organizing information. So if we go back to that example within workflow where we said we've got one document or a collection of data held within an electronic form, case management gives you the ability to kind of open up a file folder, so to speak, if we're going back to that paper example. It's a collection of information, and maybe that's data or pictures or voice recordings, but it's this collection of content that needs to stay together to drive decisions within your organization. And so these processes aren't always going to take the exact same path, but the focus of of case management is getting your knowledge workers a 360-degree view of everything that they need to quickly execute on decisions. So great examples of case management solutions would be like a claims management or provider enrollment if you're in the healthcare space, healthcare payer space, human resources, internal investigation, or vendor management solutions are often going to tap into case management. And case management and workflow usually work side by side to automate these complex processes. And so again, having them in one platform is really critical for enabling that productivity. Up next, I'm going to briefly just touch on the idea of reporting and how having reporting dashboards as a part of the OnBase solution really is critical when we're looking at case management and workflow again. These reporting dashboards are going to give you the ability to tap into insights that are happening within these workflow or case management processes so that you can continue to get better. So management can look and see, oh, I've got a bottleneck here, I need to address that. Or I have some load balancing that I need to do to make sure I'm going to meet my SLAs. These reporting dashboards are very great graphic representations of what's happening within your system so that you can continue to stay on top of your processes. And then the last piece of productivity management within the OnBase solution that I want to touch on today is customer communication management, or CCM. And this is a term that we use when we're talking about tools that can generate communications, whether it's on the fly, I need to send Emma her policy document, or batch processes where every year all of my customers get this personalized letter that I need to pull data from my systems to populate. Within Highland Software Solutions, we have these capabilities to automatically generate these types of communication and send them out to your customers via a true omni-channel approach. And what that means is you have one solution that's going to manage your physical print distribution, your email distribution, maybe you're using text messages to communicate with your customers today. This again is going to give you an automated way to manage those communications that are going out the door, and it's going to seamlessly integrate again with all of these tools that we've talked about. So when a communication goes out, it comes back into OnBase and you're able to manage it there. And you have access to it if they call and have a question about the document that they received in the mail. You're going to be able to use workflow and case management applications to spin off these types of communications going out the door. So again, it's how all of these tools work together to enable your digital transformation that provides the value of OnBase. So if you recall this slide I had up earlier talking a little bit about the idea of how all of these tools work together to provide really powerful business solutions. And these next two stages of automation are really going to encapsulate that idea perfectly. So we're going to look at how you can start bringing these advanced technologies like AI or predictive analytics or machine learning into your business solutions today. So up next, we've got process intelligence, and this is the idea of being able to use data and information that's living in all of these systems across your organization back into a process diagnostic tool that's going to allow us to identify areas of opportunity for automation and improvement really, really quickly. And you may be wondering why I have this kind of as my stage 3 of automation versus stage 1. And the reason for that is if you're still operating in a paper-driven world, you need to start at step 1 with that foundation. But if you're using tools like OnBase, maybe for productivity management, or things like an ERP system, or really any computer-mediated process, we can tap into that data. But we're not going to be able to do that if we still haven't kind of taken care of that foundation on the front end. So once we move into that computer-mediated work space where we've got data living in SAP or Workday or ServiceNow, again, all of these different types of enterprise applications across the organization that are managing your data, we can pull out that structured event data from those different applications and put them into this timeline tool, and it's going to be able to give us a visual reconstructed process that's almost like a living digital tool. So if we want to think about, again, a claims process, we've probably all submitted an insurance claim in the past. From the point where you submit that first notice of loss to the point where your claim is adjudicated, if we were able to grab the data from the systems that are managing that process and load it into this tool, Timeline is going to give us a visual representation of each and every one of those claims kind of moving down the line, but also every activity that's taken place within that process. And using some of these more advanced technologies like AI and machine learning, we're able to pull out information that's going to drive our decisions of where to automate and where we're going to get the strongest return on investment from our automation efforts. So again, the solution provides you that living digital twin that allows you to visually measure your performance, identify those areas for continuous improvement. And so it does a really great job on the front end, again, with that process discovery, quickly helping us identify those areas of opportunity and helping us analyze that root cause for what's going on there. So again, looking at where are my bottlenecks? Do I have areas where I need to redesign this process, or that I have big compliance risks that could cost me a lot of money? The tool is going to be able to identify all of that on the front end. And then this is where some of these stages of automation become a little bit of an iteration. Once you've identified those areas of opportunity, we may be circling back around to some of those productivity management tools that we talked about in the last stage, and spinning up new workflows or implementing a new case management solution, tweaking the way that we have those set up to make sure that we're operating at our highest capacity. But then after that process, we also may look at intelligent automation and where to focus those efforts, and we're going to talk a little bit about that next. But once we've had those process transformation implementations take place, we can also use Timeline on the back end to measure and monitor those processes. So Timeline can take a look at, again, were we able to actually achieve the ROI that we were anticipating on the front end of this project? Are we at risk of not hitting our SLA because the process has hit a snag point somewhere along the way? And the part that's really exciting to me is some of these predictive analytics that this data can drive. Using AI in the background, it's going to take the data, recognize patterns, and give us indications when things are like when we, again, maybe in the situation where we're not going to hit an SLA, but it can also give us information like, how likely is your customer to abandon this purchase decision through the process based off of demographic information and data that we're getting from the system? Or like for an example, if in a biotech company where they're sending out test kits, they don't get paid until those test kits come back in the door completed. So are they at risk of somebody thinking that the copay is too high? We can run analytics to say, these are the people that might be at a high risk of not complying with this test. Proactively reach out to them and counsel them to make them feel more comfortable with the decision of moving forward. And this predictive capability is really where you're going to be able to start to make changes to your processes ahead of kind of bottlenecks or running into a challenge, so that you can continuously improve on your performance and your customer experience. After you've identified those areas for improvement with process intelligence, like I mentioned, it may lead to opportunities to bring in intelligent automation. For the purpose of today's discussion, I'm going to focus on optical character recognition, or OCR, or robotic process automation, or RPA, as kind of our two intelligent automation platforms. First up, optical character recognition, or OCR, is the thought process of being able to extract information off of a document that's coming in, whether that's a physical piece of paper, an electronic document that's coming into your organization. And Naviant has two industry-leading tools that allow us to do that. So we work with Brainware from Highland Software, as well as FlexiCapture from Abby. And these are two of the names that I've mentioned previously. And, you know, again, it's going to be your process and your requirements that dictate which tool our team decides to implement for you. But today I want to talk about why are these the two tools that Naviant decides to work with, and what is the value that they bring forward. So many OCR solutions on the market use templates, and they may have different names for what those templates look like things like anchors, or there's lots of different ways that they can phrase it. But ultimately, it's a template that's telling the OCR tool where to go to extract information. Both Brainware and FlexiCapture do not rely on templates for their extraction. Instead, they're going to be leveraging AI in the background to use context and make generalizations that allow us to extract information without templates. So rather than looking to a specific coordinate or an anchor point on a document to find information for, to extract, we're using contextual tools and identifying where we want to extract that information, similar to the way that your brain would. We're going to use machine learning in the background to continue to get better at extracting information. So these machine learning engines can be trained to identify patterns and learn from the documents that it's processed in the past, to continue to minimize the amount of intervention that you need to take or exceptions that you need to manage. Now, I want to be very forthright in the fact that we can never automate processes 100%. There's likely always going to be exceptions as we kind of continue through this evolution. But these machine learning and AI abilities really give us the ability to minimize the amount of exceptions that you have within that process. And then we have tools like natural language processing in the background that allow the AI and machine learning to recognize things like invoice num or invoice hashtag or # to indicate that that's an invoice number. It doesn't need to see the word number to identify that that's how we use language in our day-to-day lives for the tool to pull back that information. Up next, we have robotic process automation, or RPA, and this again is the idea of a virtual workforce that is, deployed to kind of help you manage high volume or repetitive tasks that are pretty manual in nature, rather than having your team do that work kind of step by step manually. And Naviant has partnered with Cryon Software for full cycle RPA automation. And the reason that we've moved forward with Cryon as our partner is there is a lot of options of how we can deploy this solution to, again, meet your specific needs. So similar to the Abby product and timeline, where we talked about using data to drive where we automate, Cryon has a similar product that's called Process Discovery. And this Process Discovery bot speeds up RPA implementations and allows you to focus your automation efforts in a different way than many other solutions require. So oftentimes RPA implementations have consulting engagements that are pretty onerous in terms of time and movement. So it's someone watching your team, every click that they take, every move that they make, to then build out the process that the robots will then automate for you. This process discovery tool does that for you on the front end, so that, again, we can move to the point where you are executing the RPA processes and recognizing the value much quicker. There's a number of different options of how we can automate processes using Cryon and their full cycle approach. There are unattended bots that allow you, again, to really focus in on those high volume processes that are going to be very repetitive and kind of run in the background. Then there's also attended bots that can work alongside you on your computer, and you can say, hey, robot, your turn to jump in and complete this portion of the process without me wasting 10 minutes on it. And you can speed up how your team is interacting with your processes with kind of that ad hoc attended automation. And then there's, just as it sounds, hybrid automation that brings those two approaches together and gives us the ability, again, to have much more flexibility to deploy this solution the way that your processes dictate. And with that, I'm going to kind of come full circle again to my process soapbox, as I called it. But again, really focusing on how your digital transformation is enabled using these tools. So you may never have the need for all three of these tools. You may choose two or one. You may have a tool that already is kind of doing some of these capabilities and you want to pull OnBase into your solution suite. Naviant is here to be your process guides and work alongside you wherever you are within that automation or digital transformation journey and help identify areas for improvement along the way. So please feel free to reach out to me, and my account or my information is here on the screen, my email and my phone number. I'd be happy to have a conversation about where you are today and where you'd like to go in the future. And otherwise, we will follow up with a recording of the webinar and some other information that you might find useful here in the next day or so. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. I'll stay on if anyone has any questions. I'll keep an eye on that chat box, but otherwise, have a wonderful day. All right, it's not looking like I've got any questions coming into the chat box right this second. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if you've got any further questions, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.